True talent is impossible to hide. You can bury it under a uniform. You can scrub it into the floorboards of a gallery you don't own, but eventually, it bleeds through the canvas.
You think this is art? This is trash. You do not have the pedigree to understand fine art, let alone create it. Give it back, Victoria. It doesn't belong to you. It was created on company time, using company lighting. That makes it mine. It belongs. You're fired. Get out. I have you arrested for loitering.
But to understand how the most powerful art collector in the world dismantled an entire gallery to protect a cleaning woman, we have to go back. The rain in the city didn't care if you were a millionaire or a maid. It soaked through Maya's thin trench coat just the same. It was 6 a.m., the sky the color of wet cement, and the bus was late, again. Maya sat on the damp wooden bench, her voluminous dark curls pulled back into a tight, practical bun. Her warm caramel skin looked exhausted in the flickering streetlight. She didn't mind the early hours. She didn't mind the aching in her knees. Every floor she scrubbed paid for one more day of her younger sister's leukemia treatments. That was the only math that mattered. Beside her, on the bench, sat Ji-hoon. He was there every morning, a handsome Korean man in his early 30s. He never wore a suit, just a simple, dark wool coat and a muted scarf. He had a sharp, elegant jawline, dark, brooding eyes, and a small, distinctive beauty mark just below his left eye. They had shared this exact bench for 3 months, speaking entirely in the quiet language of shared space. Maya opened her worn bag and pulled out a small thermos. She unscrewed the lid, pouring a measure of steaming black tea into the cup. She didn't ask. She just slid the cup across the wooden bench toward him. "You look colder than usual today," Maya said, her voice a soft, warm contrast to the freezing rain. Ji-hoon looked at the cup, then up at her. His eyes softened. "The wind changed overnight. Thank you, Maya." "You shouldn't wait out here if you don't have to," Maya said, pulling a small, frayed sketchbook from her pocket along with a piece of charcoal. "The 64 bus is always delayed on Tuesdays. You could wait in the diner across the street. I prefer the company here," Ji-hoon said quietly. He watched her hands. Her fingers were calloused from harsh cleaning chemicals, yet they moved across the rough paper with breathtaking grace. "What are you drawing today?" Maya smiled. "A small guarded thing. Just a sparrow. I saw one fighting the wind yesterday. It felt familiar." She finished the quick sketch. It was just a few strokes of charcoal, but the bird looked violently alive, its wings angled perfectly against an invisible storm. She ripped the small page out and handed it to him. "Keep it," she said, as the bus air brakes hissed in the distance. "A little fighting spirit for your Tuesday." Ji-hoon took the paper carefully, as if she had just handed him spun gold. He looked at the drawing, entirely captivated. "Maya, this is incredible. You have a gift, a profound one." Maya stood up, slinging her heavy bag over her shoulder. "Gifts don't pay the hospital bills, Ji-hoon. See you tomorrow." She stepped onto the crowded bus. Ji-hoon didn't follow. He stayed on the bench in the rain, staring at the sparrow, his thumb gently tracing the edge of the paper. The Vanguard Fine Art Gallery was a temple built for the elite, designed to make everyone else feel small. The floors were imported Italian marble, the walls were blindingly white, and the owner, Victoria, demanded perfection. Maya was on her hands and knees in the center of the main exhibition room, scrubbing a scuff mark left by a wealthy patron's designer shoe. The heavy glass doors swung open. Victoria walked in. She was draped in a tailored crimson coat, her heels clicking sharply against the marble. She stopped, looking down at Maya with absolute disgust. "You missed a spot near the baseboards," Victoria snapped, gesturing vaguely to the corner of the massive room. "And why are you using that sponge? I specifically ordered the imported microfiber clothes for the main hall." Maya sat back on her heels, wiping her brow. She kept her chin parallel to the floor. Dignity was a choice, and she made it every day. "The microfiber cloths haven't been restocked in 2 weeks, Ms. Vance," Maya said calmly. "I put in a requisition form last Tuesday. In the meantime, I am using the non-abrasive sea sponges to protect the sealant, as per the manufacturer's guidelines." Victoria's eyes narrowed. She hated being corrected, especially by someone she deemed invisible. "I do not pay you to give me excuses," Victoria hissed, stepping closer. "I pay you to be a ghost. You clean the dirt, and you disappear before the real people arrive to appreciate the art. Tonight is the VIP preview for the summer collection. The wealthiest collectors in the city will be here. I want this floor so spotless I can see my reflection in it. If it isn't perfect, don't bother coming in tomorrow. It will be perfect, Maya said evenly. She picked up her bucket and moved to the corner, refusing to give Victoria the satisfaction of a reaction. Victoria sneered and walked away, murmuring about the incompetence of the help. By 10 p.m., the gallery was empty. The VIP preview wasn't for another 2 hours. The marble was gleaming. The catering was set up in the back. Maya's shift was over, but her bones ached too deeply to begin the long walk to the bus stop in the freezing rain just yet. She retreated to the small, windowless supply closet in the basement. It was her only sanctuary. She sat on an overturned chemical bucket beneath a single, flickering fluorescent bulb. She pulled out her worn sketchbook. The exhaustion melted from her shoulders. Here, in the dark, she wasn't a maid. She was a creator. She began to sketch a portrait from memory. It was Ji-hoon. She captured the quiet intensity in his dark eyes, the sharp elegance of his jaw, and the subtle shadow of his beauty mark. The charcoal moved furiously, shading and blending, bringing him to life on the page. The door to the supply closet violently ripped open. Maya jumped, her charcoal snapping in half. Victoria stood in the doorway, her face flushed with anger. "What are you doing hiding in the basement?" Victoria demanded, stepping into the cramped space. "The caterers are arriving and someone spilled wine in the lobby. Get your mop." Victoria stopped, her eyes locked onto the sketchbook in Maya's hands. There was a long, suffocating silence. "Give me that," Victoria commanded. "It's my personal property," Maya said, closing the book and holding it to her chest. "Nothing on this premises is your personal property." Victoria lunged forward, her manicured claws digging into Maya's wrist. She violently yanked the sketchbook away. Victoria flipped the book open. She meant to mock it. She meant to tear it up. But as her eyes scanned the pages, the weeping angel, the sweeping cityscapes, the hyper-realistic portrait of the Korean man, her breath hitched. Victoria had spent 20 years in the art world. She knew raw, generational genius when she saw it. "Where did you trace these?" Victoria demanded, her voice shaking. "I didn't trace them." Maya stood up, her eyes blazing. "I drew them. Now give it back to me." Victoria looked from the stunning portrait to Maya in her faded gray uniform. A wicked, calculating smile spread across Victoria's face. "You think this is art?" Victoria sneered, leaning into the lie. "This is trash. You are a woman who scrubs toilets for minimum wage. You do not have the pedigree to understand fine art." "Give it back, Victoria," Maya said, stepping forward. "It was created on company time," Victoria said, backing out of the closet. "That makes it mine, and I am throwing it in the dumpster. You're fired. Get out of my gallery before I call security." Maya stood frozen. The loss of the job was a blow, but the theft of her soul, her art, was paralyzing. She refused to beg. She slowly untied her gray apron, let it drop to the floor, and walked past Victoria without a single word. Upstairs, in her locked, glass-walled office, Victoria didn't throw the sketchbook in the trash. She laid it flat on her mahogany desk under a brilliant halogen lamp. She carefully tore out the portrait of Ji-hoon and the weeping angel. Her hands were shaking with greed. "My God," Victoria whispered to the empty room. "If I put an anonymous alias on these, they will auction for 6 figures. Easily." She picked up her phone and dialed her head appraiser. "Cancel the centerpiece for tonight's VIP auction. I have just discovered a masterwork." A mile away, Maya sat at the bus stop in the freezing rain. She had no umbrella. She had no job. The hospital bill for her sister was due in 3 days. For the first time, she lowered her head into her hands and let a single tear fall. Headlights cut through the rain, blinding her. It wasn't a city bus. It was a flawless, midnight black Rolls-Royce Phantom. It pulled up directly to the curb, the tires splashing water silently. The rear door opened. A man stepped out. He wore a stunning bespoke charcoal suit that cost more than the gallery itself. He opened a large black umbrella, stepping into the storm. Maya looked up, squinting through the rain. It was Ji-hoon. He didn't look like the quiet man from the morning. He radiated absolute power, wealth, and an icy, protective fury. He walked toward the bench, holding the umbrella over Maya, completely shielding her from the storm. He looked down at her tear-streaked face. Then, he slowly turned his head, his dark eyes locking onto the distant, glowing skyline where the Vanguard Fine Art Gallery stood. "Maya," Ji-hoon said, his voice vibrating with lethal calm. "Who made you cry?"